Turkar Hyunwoo Kim sat in his chair and watched the other aliens talk. He had been doing this for 3 years now. 3 long years of listening to them complain about humans. 3 years of hearing them say that humans caused too much trouble. The big room was full of noise. The Velkari delegates waved their long arms and made angry sounds. The Nexari clicked their metal fingers on the table. The Gorvani showed their sharp teeth when they spoke. They all agreed on one thing today. Humans had to go. Hyunwoo looked at So-young Park, who sat 2 seats away from him. She was the human military person here. Her face showed nothing, but he knew she was thinking the same thing he was. This was not a surprise. They had seen this coming for months. Taeho Lee, their helper, passed a small note to Hyunwoo. The note said, "Vote count looks bad. Maybe 800 against us." Hyunwoo nodded once and put the note in his pocket. The council speaker was a tall Velkari named Velthar. He had purple skin and 4 eyes. Today, all 4 eyes looked happy. He stood up and made the room quiet with his loud voice. "We vote today on Resolution 2847X, Velthar said. "This resolution will remove humans from the Galactic Council. It will also ban humans from all member worlds. They have 6 months to leave." Hyunwoo had read this resolution many times. It was written in the old formal way that made simple things sound important, but the meaning was clear. Get out and stay out. The voting began. Each species had to say yes or no. The Velkari said yes first. Then the Nexari said yes. The Gorvani said yes with what sounded like happy growls. Smaller species followed, yes, yes, yes. A few species said no. The peaceful Mora said no in their soft voices. The trading Zenth said no because humans bought many things from them. But not many said no. When the voting ended, Velthar looked very pleased. The count is 847 yes, 12 no, and 3 no vote. Resolution 2847X passes. The room filled with noise again. Some aliens cheered. Others talked quickly to their neighbors. A few looked worried, but not many. Hyunwoo stood up slowly. The room became quiet. Everyone wanted to hear what the human would say. Would he be angry? Would he make threats? Would he beg them to change their minds? Hyunwoo looked around the room once. He saw faces that had once been friendly. He saw others that had never liked humans. He saw fear in some eyes and happiness in others. "We understand," Hyunwoo said in a calm voice. "Humanity will do what the council wants." That was all. No long speech. No angry words, no promises of revenge, just a simple answer. So-young Park stood up too. She nodded to the room and followed Hyunwoo to the door. Taeho Lee gathered their papers and walked behind them. Outside the council room, reporters from many species waited. They pushed forward, with their recording devices and bright lights. "Ambassador Kim, what will humanity do now?" asked a Nexari reporter. "Will humans fight this decision?" shouted a Velkari newsperson. "Are you planning to make war?" called out a Gorvani with a deep voice. Hyunwoo stopped walking. He turned to face all the reporters. "Humanity will leave peacefully. We will follow the council's wishes. We thank everyone for the years we worked together." The reporters looked confused. This was not the angry response they expected. Back on the human ships, things moved very fast. So-young Park sent messages to all human commanders. "Start packing. We leave as soon as possible." Captain Min-soo Choi got the message on his ship above the Nexari homeworld. He had been trading human-made medicines for rare metals. Now he would have to stop all of that. "Close all trading deals," Min-soo told his crew. "Be polite. Pay what we owe. Take what they owe us. We leave tomorrow." On the Velkari farming world, Yoonji Song was teaching alien farmers how to grow more food. She had spent 2 years learning about their soil and weather. Now she had to pack up her research and go home. The Velkari farmer she worked with looked sad. "Why do you have to leave? The crops grow so much better with your help." Yoonji smiled at him. "I am sorry. The council has decided. But you are a good farmer. You will do well." All across the galaxy, humans began to leave. They closed their offices. They finished their projects early or handed them over to aliens. They said goodbye to friends they had made. Jinho Nam was working with Nexari scientists on new communication systems. The project was almost finished. Now he had to give all his notes to his alien partners and hope they could finish without him. The quantum resonance part is very tricky, Jinho told his Nexari friend Nexara. You have to adjust it every few days or it will stop working. Nexara's metal fingers clicked nervously. But you never showed us how to do the adjusting part. Tried to, Jinho said, but you said it was too boring and you would learn it later. Now there was no more later. On Earth, people watched the news with mixed feelings. Some were angry at the aliens for kicking humans out. Others were happy to have their people coming home. Many were worried about what would happen next. Da-Un Lim worked at a listening station in space. Her job was to watch alien communications. She saw messages flying back and forth between worlds. Most aliens seemed happy about the human departure, but a few messages worried her. Admiral Kang, she called her boss. Some of the Mora are sending worried messages. They think the other aliens made a mistake. Admiral Woojin Kang was an old soldier. He had fought in the border wars before humans joined the council. The Mora are smart, he said. They understand things others miss. Keep watching. This might get interesting. The last human ship left council space exactly 5 months and 29 days after the vote. Captain Min-Soo Choi sent one final message to the council. Thank you for the years of working together. We wish you well in all your future plans. Humanity is now gone from council space as requested. Velthar read this message in his office. For some reason it made him feel strange. Not happy like he thought he would feel. Something else. Something he could not name. Outside his window he could see the space where human ships used to park. It was empty now. Very empty. The silence felt heavy. 6 months had passed since the last human ship left council space. Yoonji Song was sitting in her small apartment on Luna, looking at Earth through her window. She was drinking tea when her old communication device made a sound she had not heard in months. The message was from Thexum, a Velkari scientist who had worked with her on the farming world. His purple face looked worried on her screen. Yoonji, I hope this message reaches you, Thexum said. We have a big problem. The grain crops are dying. The harvest is down 60% from last year. The soil microbes you helped us grow are all dead now. Please, can you tell us what we did wrong? Yoonji stared at the screen. She had spent 2 years teaching the Velkari how to take care of the soil. She had shown them how to feed the tiny creatures that helped plants grow. Had they not been listening? She sent a message back. Did you add the mineral mix every month like I showed you? The answer came back quickly. We thought that was only needed when you were here. We stopped doing it after you left. Yoonji closed her eyes. The mineral mix was not complicated. It was just basic food for the soil creatures. Without it, they would die, and without them, the plants could not grow well. Jinho Nam was having tea with his wife on Mars Colony when his communication device started making noise. The message was from Nexara, his old Nexari research partner. Jinho, the communication array stopped working last week, Nexara said. His metal face could not show emotions, but his voice sounded desperate. The quantum resonance keeps failing. We followed your notes exactly, but nothing works. The entire system is down. Jinho remembered his last day with the Nexari team. He had tried to teach them about the daily adjustments the system needed, but they had been busy preparing for some council meeting. They said they would learn it later. Did you calibrate the quantum field every day? Jinho asked in his reply message. Every day? Nexara responded. Your note said to do it when problems happened. We did not know we had to do it every day. Jinho felt tired. He had told them this many times, but they had not written it down. On the industrial world of Gorvek Prime, things were getting worse every day. The big factories that made ships and tools were running very slowly. Engineer Prime Gorvel, the leader of all Gorvani builders, was having the worst time of his life. The humans had helped design the factory systems 3 years ago. They had made everything work much faster and break down less often. But now machines were breaking every day. The repair crews could not keep up. Gorvel looked at the reports on his desk. Production was down to 30% of normal. Some factories had stopped working completely. His assistants had no idea what to do. "Get me the human design files," he told his helper. "We have all the files, Engineer Prime. But there are parts we do not understand. The humans wrote notes in their own language, and some of the technical terms make no sense to us." Gorvel growled in frustration. The files were there, but they might as well have been written in ancient cave paintings. Da-Yun Lim was still working at her listening station in space, but now her job was more interesting. She was hearing many strange messages from across the galaxy. "Admiral Kang," she called her boss. "I am getting distress signals from 17 different worlds. Most of them are about technical problems." Admiral Wu Jin Kang came to look at her screens. "What kind of technical problems?" "Food production, failures on Velkari worlds, communication breakdowns in Nixari space, factory shutdowns in Gorvani territory. And sir, this is just the beginning. I am seeing patterns." The Admiral raised his eyebrows. "What patterns?" "Every problem is happening in systems that humans helped build or design. It is like..." Da-Yun paused to think of the right words. "It is like we were holding things together, and now they are falling apart." On Earth, Ye Jino was reading classified reports in her office. She was the director of Galactic Affairs, which meant she knew secrets that most people did not know. Today, those secrets were making her very worried. The reports had strange names: Project Keystone, Project Foundation, Project Cornerstone. Each report told the same story. For 30 years, humans had been quietly becoming important to galactic civilization. Not by force or tricks, but by being helpful and reliable. Humans had written the safety codes for power systems. Humans had designed the trade agreements that prevented wars. Humans had created the communication networks that connected different species. Humans had solved problems that others could not solve. And now all of that was breaking down. "Ma'am," her assistant said, entering the office. "We have a priority message from the Mora homeworld." The Mora were peaceful aliens who rarely sent urgent messages. Hyojin opened the message immediately. "To the humans of Earth," the message began. "We fear the Council has made a terrible mistake. Already we see systems failing across the galaxy. Wars are starting that your diplomats used to prevent. We wanted you to know that some of us tried to stop this. We hope you will remember that when the time comes." Hyojin leaned back in her chair. The Mora were known for seeing the future better than other species. If they were worried, everyone should be worried. The first war started 2 weeks later. The Velkari and a smaller species called the Rishak began fighting over mining rights in a distant star system. It was exactly the kind of conflict that human diplomats had been preventing for 15 years. Ambassador Hyun-Woo Kim, now back on Earth, watched the news reports about the war. He remembered the Velkari-Rishak dispute well. It had come up in council meetings many times. Human mediators had always found ways to make both sides happy. "They could have called us," his wife said, bringing him coffee. "They voted us out," Hyun-Woo replied. "They wanted to handle things themselves. Now they are learning what that means." Captain Min-Soo Choi was enjoying his retirement on Earth when he got a strange message. It was from a Zenth trader he had worked with for many years. "Min-Soo, my friend," the message said. "Trade is becoming very difficult. The shipping routes you helped us design are not working anymore. Ships are getting lost. Deliveries are late. Some species are refusing to trade with others because of small arguments. Can you help us understand what went wrong?" Min-Soo smiled sadly. The shipping routes were not just about finding the fastest way between stars. They were about avoiding political problems. Human diplomats had spent years learning which species did not like each other. The trade routes were designed to keep unfriendly species from meeting too often in space. Without that careful planning, old arguments were starting up again. Back at her listening post, Da-Yun Lim was getting more worried every day. Her screen showed a galaxy that was slowly coming apart. "Admiral, I am tracking 47 separate system failures now. Food shortages on 12 worlds. Communication blackouts in 6 sectors, 3 more wars have started. Admiral Kang looked tired. How long do you think it will take for them to figure it out? Figure out what, sir? That they need us back. Dayun looked at her screens again. Ships were getting lost because navigation systems were failing. Planets were running out of power because energy grids were breaking down. Species were fighting because no one was helping them solve their problems peacefully. Not long, sir. Maybe a few more months. But by then... She did not finish the sentence. By then it might be too late. The Admiral finished for her. They both looked out at the stars, wondering what would be left of galactic civilization when it finally fell apart. Yunseo Kim was drinking her morning coffee on Luna Station when she watched the galactic economy die. She had been the head of the Galactic Trade Commission for 8 years before humans were kicked out. Now she watched the screens in her retirement. Home as trade routes that took centuries to build fell apart in just months. The news was bad everywhere. The Nexari had lost contact with 30% of their trading partners. Ships were arriving at the wrong planets with the wrong cargo. Some species had stopped trading completely because they could not trust the delivery schedules anymore. Honey, you should stop watching this, her husband said. It just makes you sad. But Yunseo could not stop watching. She had spent years writing the trade agreements that made galactic commerce work. Every clause, every rule, every small detail had been carefully planned to prevent exactly what was happening now. The humans had not written those agreements to control anyone. They had written them to solve problems. When the Velkari wanted to sell food but the Nexari wanted to pay in metal instead of credits, humans had found a way to make both sides happy. When shipping schedules conflicted, humans had worked out compromises. Now, without those careful agreements, old problems were coming back. Species were arguing about prices. Ships were sitting empty because no one could agree on payment terms. Trade wars were starting over things that should have been simple. On the engineering station orbiting Kepler 442, Donghyun Park was getting desperate messages every day. He had been the chief engineer on the galaxy's biggest project, a massive structure that collected energy from a star and sent it to 12 different solar systems. The messages were all from Gorvel, the Gorvani engineer prime. Each message sounded more worried than the last. Donghyun, the power grid failed in Sector 7 again. We fixed it like you showed us, but it broke again 3 days later. The energy distribution network is making strange noises. Our computers say everything is normal, but the power keeps dropping. Please, we need your help. The safety systems you designed are shutting down power to whole planets. We cannot figure out how to override them. Donghyun read each message carefully. The problems were not random. The Dyson sphere was breaking down in a very specific pattern. The safety systems were doing exactly what they were designed to do, shutting down power when they detected problems the Gorvani could not see. He sent one reply to Gorvel. The safety systems are working correctly. They are protecting you from disasters you do not understand yet. If you override them, people will die. But he knew they would probably try to override the systems anyway. They were desperate, and desperate people made dangerous choices. Junho. Yang was studying war reports in his office on Mars. He had been a military strategist before humans were expelled from the Council. Now he was watching 3 different wars spread across the galaxy, and every battle was following the same predictable patterns. The Velkari were fighting the Rishak using old-style frontal attacks. The Nexari had joined the war, but were using tactics that worked 50 years ago. New species were joining the fighting every week, but they were all making the same mistakes. Junho had spent years studying galactic military history. Human tactical doctrine had been specifically designed to break these patterns. Humans had taught other species how to fight smarter, not harder. They had shown them how to end conflicts quickly without huge losses. But now, without human advisors, everyone had gone back to the old ways. The ways that led to long, bloody wars that nobody could win. Sir, his assistant said, entering the office. The casualty reports from the Rishak front are getting worse. Junho looked at the numbers. 50,000 dead in a single battle. For what? A mining system that would be worthless if the war continued much longer. They are not learning, he said to himself. They are making every mistake we taught them to avoid. Mi Young Choi was having the worst day of her career. She was the head of Human Intelligence Services, which meant she knew things that kept her awake at night. Today she was reading reports that made her want to hide under her desk. The Nexari had lost contact with 14 colony worlds, not because of war or disaster, but because their communication systems had completely broken down. Ships sent to check on the colonies had not come back. The Gorvani military was falling apart. They had ships and weapons, but their logistics systems were failing. Troops were running out of food and ammunition because supply computers could not figure out where to send supplies. The Velkari were experiencing their first famine in 400 years. Their farming worlds were producing less food each month. Their food distribution system, which humans had helped design, was breaking down in ways that made no sense to Velkari engineers. "Ma'am," her deputy said, "we have confirmation that 6 more species have declared independence from the Council. They say the Council cannot protect them anymore." Mi Young nodded. She had expected this. When the central authority could not provide basic services like trade regulation, communication networks, and conflict resolution, local governments started taking care of themselves. The galaxy was not just losing trade and technology, it was losing the cooperation that held different species together. Changmin Li was alone on his research station, and he had just made a discovery that scared him. He had been studying the subspace communication network that connected every inhabited world in the galaxy. The network was enormous. Millions of relay stations, quantum nodes, and processing centers spread across thousands of light years. And it was dying. The quantum nodes that humans had helped calibrate were going offline one by one. The relay stations were losing synchronization. The processing centers were overloading because they could not handle the data flow without human-designed efficiency algorithms. Chang Min did calculations on his computer. At the current rate of failure, the entire network would collapse in less than 6 months. When that happened, interstellar communication would become impossible. Species would be cut off from their own colonies. The galaxy would break apart into isolated islands of civilization. He sent an urgent message to Earth. "The communication network is collapsing faster than expected. We need to do something soon, or it will be too late to fix." On the Council, Homeworld Speaker Velthar was having the worst time of his long political career. Every day brought new reports of system failures, trade disputes, and wars. Council members who had been his allies were now blaming him for the human expulsion. "You said removing the humans would make things better," shouted Nexari Councillor Nexval. "Instead, everything is falling apart. The humans were interfering with our sovereignty," Velthar replied. "We voted to remove them fairly." "Yes, and now we are all paying the price," said Velkari Councillor Velnova. "My homeworld is starving, and our engineers cannot fix the problems the humans used to solve." The council chamber that had once been full of confident delegates now echoed with angry arguments and desperate pleas for help, for species that had been allies for centuries were turning on each other as resources became scarce and systems failed. Velthar looked around the room and realized something that made his stomach hurt. The humans had not just been members of the council. They had been the glue that held the council together. Their careful diplomacy had prevented exactly these kinds of arguments. Their technical expertise had kept the galaxy's infrastructure working. Their trade agreements had made sure everyone had what they needed. Without the humans, the council was just a room full of angry aliens shouting at each other. That night, Velthar sat alone in his office and looked out at the space where human ships used to dock. The emptiness felt bigger than ever. He was starting to understand that they had not expelled troublesome junior partners. They had expelled the foundation that their entire civilization rested on, but it was too late to take back the vote. The humans were gone and the galaxy was coming apart without them. Council Speaker Velthar stood at his office window and watched another diplomatic ship prepare to leave for human space. This was the 17th attempt to contact humanity in the past 2 months. Like all the others, he knew it would fail. The Bine ship was small and painted white with symbols of peace. It carried Ambassador Nexkari, the best diplomat the Nexari had. She was their last hope for making contact with the humans. All the previous ambassadors had returned with the same message. Humanity is in compliance with Council Resolution 2847X. No further contact is requested. Velthar watched the ship disappear into hyperspace and felt his heart sink. How had everything gone so wrong so fast? Bora Kim was monitoring the Council's diplomatic attempts from her command station on Aurora Base. The human deep space station was hidden in an empty system far from the galactic center. Her job was to watch Council space and report what she saw to Earth. Another peace ship just entered our territory, she told her communications officer. Same as all the others. They want to talk. Should we respond? The officer asked. Orders are orders, Bora replied. Send the standard message and escort them back to the border. The human border defense was not made of weapons or soldiers. It was made of automated stations that politely but firmly turned away all visitors. The stations were programmed with the same message every time. Humanity was following the Council's wishes by staying away. The irony was not lost on Bora. The Council had told humans to leave and never come back. Now they were desperately trying to contact humans, but humans were doing exactly what the Council had asked. On the Velkari homeworld, Prime Minister Veltara was facing the worst crisis in her species' history. The agricultural systems were failing completely. Food riots had started in 3 major cities. Her environmental engineers had no idea how to fix the soil problems that were killing crops across the planet. She had swallowed her pride weeks ago and recorded a message for any human who might receive it. To any human listening, we need help. Our people are starving. We were wrong to vote for your expulsion. Please, if you can hear this, please help us. She had broadcast the message on every frequency, sent it toward every known human territory, and transmitted it through every communication. Relay still working. But there had been no response. What Veltara did not know was that humans were listening. They heard every desperate plea, every call for help, every admission that the Council had made a mistake. But humans were not responding because they had learned something important. Words were easy, but real change was hard. Shung Ho Nam was reading intelligence reports in his office on Earth. As head of Human Colonial Administration, he received information about every human territory and all their neighbors. Today's reports were the most disturbing yet. The Nexari have abandoned 12 more colony worlds, he told the Emergency Earth Council meeting. They simply do not have the infrastructure to support them anymore. The colonies are on their own. What about the Gorvani? Asked Councillor Park. The Gorvani military is in complete chaos. They have the ships and weapons, but they cannot coordinate anything larger than a single-planet operation. Their supply networks have collapsed. The Earth Council members looked at each other with worried expressions. These were not small problems that could be fixed quickly. These were the results of entire civilizations losing the basic ability to govern themselves effectively. And the wars? Asked Councillor Lee. Sung Ho's expression grew darker. 4 major conflicts now, with more species joining each week. Casualty reports suggest over 2 million dead in the past month alone. The room fell silent. 2 million beings, dead because conflicts that humans used to prevent peacefully were now being fought with weapons. Reum. Song was studying ecological data when she discovered something that made her hands shake. She was a xenobiologist who specialized in terraforming, the process of making planets suitable for life. What she found in her data files was terrifying. The terraforming projects that humanity had guided were reversing. Atmospheres that had been carefully balanced to support life were becoming toxic again. Ecosystems that had been stable for decades were collapsing. Weather patterns were becoming chaotic. 47 worlds, billions of people, all in danger because the biological systems that kept their planets livable were breaking down. She called her supervisor immediately. Sir, we have a crisis. The terraforming failures are accelerating. If this continues, some worlds will become uninhabitable within a year. How many people are at risk? Her supervisor asked. Arium checked her calculations again, hoping she had made a mistake. Conservative estimate, 3 billion beings across multiple species. If the atmospheric processors fail completely, it could be much worse. On Nexari, Prime, the capital world of the Nexari Union, panic was setting in. The planetary computer network had been down for 3 days. Traffic control, power distribution, water treatment, life support. Everything depended on the computer systems that humans had helped design and maintain. Nexari engineers worked desperately to restore the systems, but they kept making the problems worse. Every time they tried to fix something, 2 other things would break. Nexcol, the chief system administrator, was reading through old maintenance logs when he found a disturbing pattern. Every major system update, every critical repair, every stability improvement over the past 10 years had been supervised by humans. The humans had not taken control of Nexari technology. They had simply been the ones who understood it well enough to keep it working. Without them, the Nexari were trying to maintain systems they did not fully comprehend. Council Speaker Velthar made a decision that would have seemed impossible 6 months earlier. He authorized the largest military fleet in galactic history to enter human space by force. If humans would not respond to diplomatic requests, maybe they would respond to strength. The fleet consisted of 2,147 ships from 17 different species. Admiral Gorthak of the Gorvani led the massive force toward the human border. Their mission was simple: make contact with humanity by any means necessary. "This is madness," muttered Velkari Admiral Velkor as she watched the fleet assemble. "We are about to invade the territory of the people we need to save us." But Velthar was desperate. The galaxy was dying, and only humans seemed to know how to fix it. If they would not come willingly, perhaps they could be convinced to come by force. The fleet reached the human border and found nothing. No ships, no stations, no defenses. Just empty space and automated buoys that broadcast the same polite message: "Please turn back. Humanity is in compliance with Council Resolution 2847X. Admiral Gorthak was confused. Where were the human defenses? Where were their fleets? How could an entire species just disappear? Then the communication channels activated, and Admiral Yoon Suk Park appeared on every screen in the Council fleet. He was broadcasting from somewhere, but the signal's origin could not be traced. "Greetings, Council forces," Admiral Park said. His voice was calm and professional. "You have entered human space without permission, but we understand your desperation. We have been watching your civilization collapse for months." Admiral Gorthak tried to respond, but Park continued speaking. "You voted to expel us from your council and ban us from your worlds. We complied fully with your wishes. We removed not just our people, but our support, our expertise, and our assistance. You are now experiencing the consequences of managing galactic civilization without us." Park's image looked directly into the camera. "You made a choice. You decided you did not need humanity. You chose to handle galactic affairs yourselves. How is that working for you?" The question hung in space, like a challenge. "However," Park continued, "we are not cruel. If you wish to reconsider your decision, you know how to reach us. But understand this: we will not return as junior partners or tolerated guests. If we return, it will be as equals, with full recognition of our contributions and our right to participate in galactic affairs as an independent power." The transmission ended, leaving the massive Council fleet alone in empty space. Admiral Gorthak looked around at his fellow commanders. They had brought nearly 3,000 ships to intimidate humanity into helping them. Instead, they had been calmly lectured by a single human who had made them realize how completely they depended on the people they had expelled. The fleet turned around and went home, leaving the human border as quiet and empty as they had found it. Sojin Kim was monitoring galactic communications from Proxima Station when she received the message that changed everything. She had been watching the galaxy fall apart for over a year now, tracking the collapse of civilizations that had once seemed so powerful and confident. The message was from Council Speaker Velthar himself. It was being broadcast on all frequencies, reaching every inhabited world in the galaxy. "To humanity, from the Galactic Council," Velthar began. His voice sounded tired and defeated. "We were wrong. We made a terrible mistake when we expelled you from the council. We humbly request your return, not as members under our authority, but as partners, as equals." So Jin listened to the entire message and then sent it immediately to the Human High Council on Earth. This was what they had been waiting for. Not just an admission that the council needed help, but recognition that humans deserved to be treated as equals. The response came not from a politician or military leader, but from Dr. Jae-sung Oh, a quiet scientist who had spent most of his career perfecting terraforming techniques. His message was broadcast simultaneously from every human facility in known space. "The people of Earth and our colonies have voted," Dr. Oh said. "We will return to help rebuild what has been broken, but this time, we do so not as applicants seeking membership, but as the independent human coalition working alongside the council as equal partners." The words were simple, but their meaning was revolutionary. Humans would return, but not as they had been before. They would return as an independent power that chose to cooperate with the council, not serve under it. Ambassador Hyun-woo Kim returned to the council chambers 6 months later. But everything was different now. Instead of sitting in the members' section where humans had sat for decades, he sat at a separate table marked Human Coalition, Independent Partner. The symbolism was impossible to miss. Humans were no longer junior members hoping for acceptance. They were an independent civilization that chose to work with others as equals. The first joint session was awkward. Council members who had voted to expel humans now had to negotiate with them as equals. Some aliens were angry about this change. Others were just grateful that someone was willing to help fix the mess they had created. Yoon Hae Park, the new human coordinator of Galactic Affairs, addressed the first meeting. "We are here to help rebuild galactic civilization, but we will do so as partners, not servants. Our expertise and assistance will be given freely, but our independence will not be negotiated." The rebuilding process was slow and difficult. Systems that had taken decades to build had collapsed in months. Trust between species had been shattered by wars and resource conflicts. Some damage could never be fully repaired, but humans brought more than just technical knowledge. They brought a different approach to cooperation. Instead of trying to control other species, they focused on teaching them to solve problems themselves. Sang-ho Lee, now leading the Infrastructure Restoration Committee, worked with engineers from every species to rebuild the galactic communication network. But unlike before, he made sure that alien engineers understood every step of the process. "We will not be here forever," Sang-ho told his multinational team. "You must learn to maintain these systems yourselves. We will teach you everything we know, but you must take responsibility for your own technology." The Valkyrie farming crisis was solved within a year, but not by humans doing all the work. Yoon Ji-song returned to the Valkyrie homeworld as an advisor, not a manager. She taught Valkyrie scientists how to understand their own soil and ecosystems. "I cannot stay here forever," Yoonji told her Valkyrie students. "You must become the experts on your own world. I will teach you what I know, but you must learn to think like scientists, not just follow instructions." The wars ended more slowly. Jinwoo Park, a human diplomat, spent months shuttling between warring species, not to impose peace but to help them find ways to resolve their conflicts themselves. "We will not force you to make peace," Jinwoo told the Valkyrie and Rishok negotiators, "but we will show you the true cost of continuing this war, and we will help you find alternatives if you choose to look for them." The galaxy that emerged from the reconstruction was different from the one that had existed before. It was more careful, more aware of how connected everything was. Species that had taken human contributions for granted now understood the value of cooperation and expertise. Min Jae Kim, a political scientist studying the transformation, wrote in his research, "The human exodus demonstrated humanity's importance not through conquest or threats, but through absence. By leaving quietly when asked, they forced the galaxy to confront the true extent of human contributions to galactic civilization." Council Speaker Velthar, in his final address before retirement, tried to summarize what had happened. We thought we were expelling troublesome partners who interfered too much in our affairs. Instead, we learned that humanity had become the foundation upon which our entire civilization rested. We expelled the very people who held our society together. He paused and looked around the chamber, which now included the human delegation at their separate but equal table. We will not make that mistake again. Independence does not mean isolation. Sovereignty does not mean rejecting help from those who offer it freely. We have learned that civilization is built on cooperation, not domination. Admiral Yoon Seok Park, now serving as human military liaison to the Council, wrote in his personal journal, "They asked us to leave, so we did. They discovered they needed us, so we returned. But we returned as ourselves, not as what they wanted us to be. Sometimes the greatest power is knowing when to walk away, and the greatest wisdom is knowing the terms under which you will return." New galactic order was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still technical problems, still political disagreements. But there was also something that had not existed before: genuine respect for different approaches to solving problems. Humans no longer had to prove their worth by accepting whatever role other species assigned to them. Other species no longer had to pretend they did not need help while secretly depending on human expertise. The human coalition maintained its own territories, its own fleets, and its own policies, while cooperating with the reformed council on matters of mutual interest. When humans offered advice or assistance, it was accepted gratefully rather than grudgingly. Years later, when historians studied this period, they would call it the Great Rebalancing. It was the time when the galaxy learned that true cooperation required mutual respect, and that the most valuable partners are often those who are willing to walk away rather than accept unequal treatment. Da Yoon Lim, still monitoring communications from her space station, sent a final report to Earth. Galactic civilization is stabilizing. The new partnership structure is working. Species are learning to solve their own problems while still accepting help when they need it. She looked out at the stars and smiled. The galaxy was still full of different species with different ideas about how things should work. But now they were learning to work together as equals, not as rulers and subjects. The quiet humans had taught the galaxy an important lesson. Sometimes you have to be willing to lose everything to gain the respect you deserve. And sometimes the best way to help someone is to step back and let them learn to help themselves. The galaxy was a better place because humans had left quietly and returned proudly.